Time travel stories are hard to do, but they're always fun for me. I love the idea of a time loop or characters changing things over and over, and many times the result is the sci-fi approach to the age-old idea, be careful what you wish for. In 2015, there was a little movie me and my buddies in high school saw that I knew next to nothing about going into. It wasn't a scary movie, which I used to not like, believe it or not, and was apparently a sci-fi. I have not seen this movie in a decade, and honestly, still a really good time. Project Almanac released on January 28th, 2015, and was produced by Michael Bay. Yes, I acknowledge the title may be a bit misleading, but before you accuse me of clickbait, hear me out. He is the producer, and you can absolutely see his influence on the movie, for better or worse. The film follows David, an incredibly smart 17-year-old who wants to get into MIT but needs a scholarship. His friends are incredibly supportive, and the first act of this movie quickly gives you the introduction to his friend group and how their dynamics work and set the movie in motion. While sorting through the attic, David and his sister Christina, who goes by Chris, find their late father's old camera, which has an old family video where they see David from the present 10 years later, as it's his 7th birthday party. That's all I can give you without full-on spoiling it, but if you haven't put it together yet, yeah, it's a time travel movie. And I would argue a pretty unique one. For starters, just from the setup, the goal of the protagonist is never to travel back in time. Yes, this is the case for some of the classics like Back to the Future, but Marty McFly isn't really begging to go back to 1955. Doc, however, is. David is not worried about that, though. In fact, he's adamant on the fact that time travel isn't possible, while also grappling with the fact that that is him in the video. This leads the group to basically reverse engineer a time machine that they do happen to find using clues from the video, which is a really neat idea. One aspect which has definitely aged is the fact that this movie is about teenagers in 2014. At one point, this movie cuts to Imagine Dragons performing live, and it's like peak coolness for the kids. Do you remember when Imagine Dragons were big? Pepperidge Farm remembers. At the same time, that's also why I can't help but love it. I was a teen when this came out, and these things were cool. They acted like me and the crew did. And realistically speaking, it's not like teenagers would use time travel responsibly. This is where a lot of the fun of the film comes in, with trivial pranks or redos being labeled as experiments, going back over and over to get a verbal test right, getting back at a bully, or skipping class to go to Lollapalooza. But lurking in the back of each of these jumps, as the friends call it, is something almost sinister, and it occasionally starts to veer into horror movie territory, the found footage aspect adding onto it. On looking up reviews for the movie after this viewing, I definitely noted a pattern of people saying, "Why was this in found footage?" or "There's too much shaky cam." And while I agree with the latter, I think it's a unique and story-driven approach. These guys are all nerds. Well, 2 nerds, a sister, the bro dude, and the hot girl that the first nerd likes. But nonetheless, it makes sense that they would want to document everything on their experiments, and the first 10 minutes show just how much Chris likes to record things. I like to think David got his dad's brains, and Chris got his eye for detail. The camera does get a lot of cool shots, both actual and visual effects. Several times it gets lost in the dust storm right before a jump, and it slowly raises into the air or rapidly spins around and doing the whole, glitching thing. But I will say, if you get motion sickness, anytime that they jump through time, you might just want to look away from the screen. You'll thank me later. Remember how I said this movie was produced by Michael Bay? That becomes abundantly clear anytime they time travel. It gets really loud, things start sparking and blowing up, and it becomes really thrilling. For better or worse, it's one of his trademarks, and while I mean it in fun, it's honestly hilarious how he's only the producer, but if you haven't seen this movie and just saw the clips of them traveling through time, you would more than likely assume that it was directed by him, full stop. When the movie gets serious, though, I think that's when it's at its best. This is definitely more lighthearted in the first half, which makes for a more emotional impact with certain events in the second, but there's a compelling story of a young man who's trying to have it all. This notion is incredibly familiar to the genre, but it stings a little bit when you see parts of yourself in David. But with the lengths he goes to, which are notably trivial, but also understandable as an awkward, nerdy teenager, he realizes that there really is no time like the present, and while things may not be perfect, it doesn't mean that a small change would make everything better. Without saying exactly what happens, the best and worst part of this movie is the third act. I'm really big on sticking the landing. That can honestly make or break a movie for me, and I think Project Almanac does it well overall, but has somewhat of a cop-out ending. In vague terms, things are the same once David goes back in time, the final time, but also slightly different in very important ways. It's not crystal clear wrap-up, but there's definitely some ideas. I would still absolutely recommend this movie to anybody who wants a fun time travel movie or is big on found footage. It's a little gem I'll always have a weird appreciation for, even if I'm aware it's not a perfect movie. And it'll always remind me of that time when I was a teenager and went and saw exciting movies like these with my friends. I own Project Almanac on DVD, but it is currently available to watch for free on Pluto TV or available to rent from Apple TV or Amazon Prime Video. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments if you've seen Project Almanac and what you think. Or, what's your favorite time travel movie? Comment below, let me know, and I'll see you next episode. Same Zach time, same Zach channel. Get it? Go on? Okay, good. Got it. Time travel stories are always hard to do, but they're always fun for me. I love the idea of a time loop or... Wait, have I done this before?